Hi,
Hello.
I'm Julian.
I'm Gumshoe Tom, everybody.
We are Team Binge. We are here to talk about True Detective Season 4, Part 4. And if you notice the doldrums in Tom's voice, it's because I made a comment last episode about him being too cheery while we talk about all these people getting murdered. I assume that's why he's doing it, although he may have his other reasons. He may be doing an Eeyore impression. Tom, are you sad because of all of the death in Ennis?
Yeah, I feel like I need to bring my energy down a peg because this episode was dark. It was good. It was a great episode, but this one was dark. What do you think? Did you enjoy this one? They definitely went more into the horror vibes that we kind of talked about in the first episode. What's your take?
Yeah, no, I've never been a jump scare guy. So I'm never going to be one that's like, hey, give me more. And I don't know when we decided as a culture that the creepiest thing in the world was like a dead woman with hair in front of her face that was like slightly rotted. I think The Ring, I'm sure horror fans will tell me I'm wrong, but that is the first time I remember being terrified of a young female corpse. Well, there's some others, but we won't get into it. So no, I enjoyed this episode, but I did. You're right. They leaned into the horror, and there were certain times I watched it, and I was like, didn't need that. Not gonna sleep tonight. That feels good.
Don't look
How,
under your bed.
yeah. How about you?
No, I dug it, man. Like, I like where they're going this season. I know this season has been, and I don't know, you probably are not big on the social medias, but the writer creator Issa Lopez has apparently been getting a lot of flack because of the way she's telling the story or her artistic vision. Because that Nick Palazzo guy or whatever his name is, apologies, I don't know it, who's kind of the original creator, did the first three seasons. He apparently is not a big fan, and he lost like any sort of like writer credit to this. So there's a lot of backlash online, but I think it's completely ill-founded because it's different, which is fine. Like the show can still have elements of the True Detective like universe, but still be its own thing. And I've very much been enjoying the series so far.
Yeah, the way I would. Obviously, it's been a fun journey. It's going to continue to be a fun journey. I will say if we get to the conclusion and all of the like horror elements and the supernatural elements are kind of explained away, I might have bigger issue than if at the end of the show there is like a supernatural element to it, albeit like kind of questionable in terms of, hey, was that real? Was it a vision? All those things. Tom, you and I watched that Stephen King adaptation on HBO, which was called The Stranger, maybe? What was that one called?
You lost me, man. I remember watching a handful of Stephen King joints on this is a Netflix show, but I couldn't tell you what it is.
Yeah, it was the one with like El Cuco or whatever it was.
Oh, that's okay. That was like a series, right? It wasn't a movie.
Right. Did I say movie? Forgive me. I apologize if I said movie. But no, that series, I kind of hope this is within that vein. There is like a supernatural element mixed with some detectivist.
The Outsider.
The Outsider, thank you. That's the one with Tom Cruise and all those young movie stars. The Outsiders, that's right. No, I hope it's like that rather than like, hey, some northern lights hit a gas plant and everyone saw visions and there are no dead bodies pointing at you. Like,
Me and my wife went back and rewatched. Did you watch Fargo? Any of those seasons?
yeah, I watched the first two seasons of Fargo.
Yeah. Because again, it's similar to the show. I think we had mentioned where they're kind of in the same universe, but each season is its own deal with a new set of cast. And in season three, and spoiler alert here if you haven't seen season three of Fargo, but they do this very weird, like, spaceship alien thing
Oh,
where
no.
they show a spaceship kind of come in, but just to kind of play with the characters, and then it just takes off. But then, like, one of these big climactic scenes in the end of the series, like, a spaceship just hovers over and shines a bunch of lights on all the major characters and then just leaves and is never touched on again. It's just so wild and out there. I absolutely loved it.
Okay.
And I don't think the show's going there, but I don't mind a little bit of wildness like that.
Sure, yeah. I think you and I are looking for different things in our television shows. But that's fine. You like Ancient Aliens, and I like Ken Burns documentaries. We're operating at different levels, but still learning the same history, I will say. All right, let's dive into episode 4. This starts with Danvers listening to white noise. Does she listen to the white noise? She's clearly maybe got a little bit of a substance. We see her drinking pretty hard, although Julian, don't judge people that drink too hard. So I'm going to roll that one back. But she's listening to white noise. We don't know if it's 3:30 a.m. or p.m. because there's no sun in this place. But yeah, obviously she's dealing with some sort of trauma, and this white noise like helps her. Is she really afraid that she's going to hear... I was going to say shake it off, but it's twist and shout. Man, it's on my brain.
She's everywhere, man.
Oh, goodness.
No, I don't know. It's like at first I thought it was a means for her to like focus when she's doing her detective work, which she had in her headphones. But now that she listens to it while she's like sleeping, I don't know. But she was kind of like up and awake while she was listening to the white noise. Maybe she was thinking about the case, or yeah, maybe she's hearing voices and she's hearing her dead son, and she's trying to like drown it out. I don't know.
Oh, that was dark. Now, you're not a white noise guy. You have the one where the whales are making sweet, sweet love in the ocean. That's the one that you listen to when you're trying to, we'll call it focus.
Correct. I mean, I've got a little bit of tinnitus myself, so having a little bit of whale mating is always a welcome sign.
Whale mating mixed with the screeching of your eardrums dying? Sure, that makes sense. All right, she's rewatching the Annie Kotok video. And Tom, how many times did you stop, rewind, try to pinpoint frames in this video?
Well, there weren't any words on the screen, so I didn't. But when they notoriously, I like to stop if there's small words in print on the screen. There's the way she kind of slowed it here. Eventually, we find out it's like whale bones, right? But I thought it was almost the outline of a person. Did you get that at all?
No, I don't know if I wasn't wearing my glasses, but I couldn't see. I was like, oh, there's blue ice behind her. That was the best that I could do.
Yeah, it was kind of like framed, and there was like a light shining seemingly towards like where a head would be. To me, it looked like somebody was just like filming it, and that's what she saw. But it's kind of like more the arc that you see on the right side of the screen that has the whale bones, where they kind of just figure out it's an ice cave somewhere locally, I guess.
Yeah, I assume the show's going to tell me what I need to glean from this video, or at least Reddit, which I'm not reading. We'll figure it out. So I didn't spend much time too focused. I was pretty focused on no one has bought a single Christmas gift in this show, and it is December 24th, which, as we all know... No?
That's not true, man. Quavik got a gift. Quavik got a gift for Navarro. We see it later in this episode.
Okay, that's true. He got a lovely gift for her. But it's been 48 hours, so Anchorage is in picking up those bodies because they're all thawed out. I like to think that the bodies are literally just like now like contorted flatly on the ice and are just kind of sliding around on the ice because the ice is melted on the ice rink. And then there's kids with hockey sticks just kind of pushing them around like they're stones for curling. Anyways, that's too much, Julian. We have, it's Julia as the sister, correct? She's having an episode on the side of the road. I was like, that person, it's like when you go skiing and someone's shirtless, you're like, listen, lady, I don't think you're that warm. Or sometimes it's a guy. But I guess in Arizona, maybe we ski differently here. But she is having an episode. Danvers very sweetly stops her and goes to take care of her. And I'm like, I still don't buy it, show. Danvers is still a terrible person. You can have her try and be kind to someone. She's still terrible and racist. That's my stance.
I think she's like... I don't know how they're trying to paint her. It's like she's kind-hearted, but she's still miserable to most everybody she meets. But clearly she has a close relationship with Navarro and her sister here. So she's just trying to do the right thing and look after her. Because I'm sure this isn't the first time that Danvers has helped out Julia.
Well, yes, I would disagree with you. I mean, their relationship is close, maybe in the fact that they know each other well. I wouldn't say they are... super buds like you and I with our secret handshake.
I feel like Danvers is just trying to push her away. Like I think they are kind of close, as close as a friend that Danvers can seemingly get.
Sure. Yeah, I guess they're murder buddies, so that makes them close, right?
Yeah, you have to be.
Exactly. Ted and Danvers talk, and he's down from Anchorage, which lets us all know there's going to be some sweet love making eventually in this. You can't keep these two crazy kids. They're just so in love. Can't keep them away from each other. But Danvers is like, listen, I need you to know these men died before they froze, which I'm going to reiterate what I said last podcast. Is this a real surprise? They all look like they're freaked out. Like like I don't think when you're I'm pretty sure you just kind of fall asleep when you're freezing to death. I haven't done it before, Tom, but I'm pretty sure you just kind of fall asleep. Or these guys were all like practical jokers, and they're like, listen, we're gonna die on this ice. We're gonna die real slow and calmly. Everyone make a funny face. Hold that. Oh, Frank, that's a good face, man. Hold that. They're gonna be terrified.
I mean, do you feel like Ted Connolly here is a bit suspicious? Like, he kind of mentions, like, hey, let's keep this on a need-to-know basis kind of a deal. Like, do you think he's trying to hide something, or he's trying to cover something up as he's running for mayor, I guess? Or do you think he's on the up and up?
No, Tom, as someone who ends most of his conversations with, hey, we need to keep this on a need-to-know basis. I didn't find this suspicious at all. I have two kids. I'm constantly like, listen, when your mom shows up, we keep this on a need-to-know basis, all right? And they're like, but you broke the window. And I'm like, narc! And that's why my kids are grounded constantly for being snitches. No, I didn't find him suspicious here. I mean, he might be bad, but everyone in comparison to Danvers, I'm like, Danvers treats that person really poorly. But maybe Danvers just knows all these people are terrible. I don't know. I don't know. This leads to Julia being dropped off at the treatment center, which I think is called like the Lighthouse. And this was brought up before. She was like adamant about not going. I mean, listen, I've never been in this situation. Heart-wrenching. Both Navarro and Julia as characters and actors, I felt bad for this situation. I wrote in the outline, Tom, is the treatment center suspicious? Something must have gone on there that I was like, is this where we send a bunch of people and then people disappear? Is this a human trafficking hub? Is that what I mean, you're laughing, but these are some of the things that I think maybe we're not asking enough questions about the lighthouse. What even is a lighthouse? Does it shine the light for where the human traffickers should go? Probably. I don't know. No one knows what a lighthouse does. Tom, have you ever interacted with a lighthouse in your life?
No. I mean, I've taken a picture of one or two. So.
Case in point, friends. It's probably the lighthouse. This, this funded treatment center that's just trying to help people. I'm very suspicious of you, Lighthouse.
Listen, if Danvers taught us anything, it's to ask the right questions. I would argue you're not asking the right questions, but I appreciate you asking questions.
Sure. Like, why is there a lighthouse in the middle of land? Lighthouses should be near water. Boom. Maybe that speaks to global warming, where we're all going to be really close to water soon. Boom.
Listen, for a town that has no sun, I would imagine a lighthouse is like the perfect sun substitute.
Yeah, but they use one of those like infrared lights, so you can't actually see the light at the lighthouse. But it does really make blood and urine stand out. I won't mention the third. All right, let's move on. I'm on a tear, Tom. I apologize. We're like 3 minutes into this recording, and I can't stay on the rails. Danvers, the nicest police chief in the world, makes Pete work on Christmas Eve and put out an APB on one Otis, this German national that I guess has similar injuries to the gentlemen that all died on the ice from the Salal facility.
Yeah, I think like the eardrum bursting, the self-inflicted wounds, like eyeballs burnt or whatever. I don't know, like I feel like this was kind of pigeonholed in a little bit just to be able to, I don't know, get us to this next place. Like I like where they went with it, but it seemed a little bit too cute that everything was just perfectly aligned with this guy and his symptoms, but then him having like a history of disorderly conduct. So they feel like they have a new suspect now.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, people can add us. Is there a database where you can look up where people have similar injuries just so, you're like, oh, you can like connect the injuries, because that's what Pete ultimately does. Is he goes on a database and he types in Germans with blown eardrums, and then a bunch of like death metal concert goers show up, and he's like, all right, burned retinas, and it's like a bunch of death metal pornographists show up, or I guess pornography frequenters show up, because that's what
I was going
burns
to say
your
Eclipse
retinas.
watchers.
Eclipse watchers, probably
Yeah.
better for a podcast for children, actually. Kids have questions.
show's not for children.
We apologize. That's true. True Detective is not for children. If my kids watch this, they would not be able to keep it on a need-to-know basis, and they will most certainly rat me out to my wife. Anyways, they put out an APB on Otis, and that's why Pete's going to miss Christmas Eve. Now, what is he missing on Christmas Eve? Is he missing a dinner? Is he missing, like, the opening of one gift? Is he missing... What is he missing, Tom? What do you do on Christmas Eve that if you weren't home for, you would miss out on?
Listen, we don't know what their traditions are, but I would argue just being present with your family on Christmas Eve is a joy in and of itself.
Good point. Opening presents. I didn't hear anything but presents when you were talking, because that's what Christmas means. That's the true meaning of Christmas to me. Sorry, Mom.
Goods.
Goods. Goods. Commerce. Me getting stuff. All right. All right. Do you have anything more to say about our good friend Otis? Milo and his buddy Otis.
No, outside of he was creepy at the end. I feel like I did recognize this actor. I know probably people hate this on podcasts if you say, oh, I recognize that actor, but then don't say what he's from. But I thought he did a good creepy vibe here at the end, too.
Yeah, I mean, if you take someone's eyeballs, they're inevitably going to be creepy.
Fair point.
All right. Hank is picking up his fiance, and I mean, you know, I don't like horror movies, but I love a rom-com. And just, you know, this, I thought they played, when she comes off that airplane, and he has got that, I don't know, gift for her, and the rose
Alaskan
petals.
bunny.
And you can just tell these two kids, much like Collins and Danvers, are just going to be in love for a real long, long time. Unfortunately, she does not get off of the plane. He is super sad. And this just made me think about when I had a girlfriend in grade school, and when I was asked about her, I was always like, she goes to another school. But here's a magazine clipping of what she looks like that I put in a picture frame. But she goes to a school across town. Yes, pen pal. Turns out that pen pal had a prison number, but that doesn't matter. Let's move on.
What's your thought about Hank here? Do you have any sort of sympathy for him? He seems like we see him later in the scene, and he seems still to not believe it, that she's still coming, tries to like, give her an excuse. Do you feel for him, or do you think he's a sleazebag?
No, I feel for Hank. Hank has got a kleptomaniac thief for a son that's constantly going into his house and stealing boxes of evidence that are rightfully Hank's. This was an argument that happened in my living room, by the way. Got real yelly in the living room when this got brought up. So Hank has got a fiance that can't make it to a plane, so he probably paid for that plane ticket. Now he's got to pay for her to get on another flight because she was probably late to security at the airport. And then thief of a son, and also used to be the chief of police. Now he just picks roses and lays them on beds. So yes, I feel bad for Hank in the most way possible. In fact, I think he's going to be the hero of the show.
Okay. He's going to make a turnaround?
Yep. Because if I know anything, it's that guys standing at airports with stuffed animals, always winners. Danvers and Navarro are back in the vehicle together, driving. They're talking about prayer and spiritual stuff. And I will say that in terms of like a through line with past episodes of True Detective, two people driving in a car talking about important things is, I mean, so I guess it's this show doing that, and then comedians in cars getting coffee. Like, that is, I guess, the lost season of True Detective is Seinfeld driving around with people. But I do enjoy these discussions, although it's typically just Navarro's being a jerk.
Navarro or Danvers? Danvers
I'm
being a
sorry,
jerk. Navarro's
Danvers
just
being a
taking it.
jerk. No, Navarro's great.
And Navarro, like, I feel like this was the opportunity where she could have said, like, hey, by the way, when we were at that hospital, that dude got up and pointed at me before he died and said this super creepy thing. And she never does, which I
Nope.
think is interesting because she's not kind of playing out these things that she knows is kind of wild in her mind. I think she realizes they're wild and she's not even telling Danvers about it.
Okay. Yeah, let's put a pin in that one because I think that's going to be important as we talk about this later in the pod. These two are going to visit that handsome geologist, super tall. He has a wife, and I got the sense that Danvers and the wife were pretty close chums, right?
She was none too pleased to see Danvers, and I loved the little line that Navarro says, like, "Is there anybody you haven't slept with?" It was great.
Small town, a lot of nighttime. I mean, which is where
Nighttime's the right time.
Oof. Okay. Gross. Speaking of gross, we find out that it's whale bones in the ice caves, and that these ice caves, which Navarro earlier in the episode was like, "There's no ice caves around here." This guy's like, "Oh no, there's certainly ice caves at the Brooks Range," and that's when we found out that Navarro was not a geologist. And guess who, Tom? Convenient storytelling device. I'll give you 8 guesses who mapped these caves. And his name rhymes with coitus.
Oh, goodness. I think it's one Otis, who we just met not 3 scenes ago.
Yes. So, good on us. Anyways, so thank you, storytelling conventions. We now know that Otis is going to be the coitus of this episode. I think I'm using that term, right? Honestly, I don't know what it means. Never
It's an Alaskan term.
Yeah, never experienced it. We cut to Julia, who sees an orange. She's at the facility, the lighthouse, which we're all very suspicious about.
And this is a roll-by fruiting as opposed to a drive-by fruiting.
Yep, right. Roll-by fruiting, that's true. And guess who? I mean, the coincidence of her, I'm assuming she's randomly assigned a room. She is assigned a room, and who is under her bed but her dead mom? Like, what are the chances? Can you imagine going to like a hotel looking under the bed and your dead mom is underneath that bed? Whew.
I mean, we've all found dead bodies under our beds, but for it to be your mom is just, astronomical. Struck by lightning kind of stuff.
Listen, I don't want to brag, Tom, but I'm at a point in my life where I'm not staying at dead body under bed hotels. I've upgraded, to the Motel 9
Dead
and a
roaches.
half. Yes, the ones where you don't want to turn a black light on. Or an infrared light. So this was weird, right? Certainly scary.
We have like this through line of both Navarro and Julia seeing oranges, which is kind of interesting. My assumption is that her mom maybe saw oranges, and maybe they all died of like some sort of anti-scurvy type disease, right? Maybe they ate too many oranges, too much high C. Is that a thing?
Yep. Too much high C, certainly. I remember putting a straw in a box of high C as a kid, and my mom slapped it out of my hand. She said, "Too much high C." Yeah, all that ectoplasm everywhere. So yeah, no, I don't know if this is scurvy related. I know that's been the culprit on most of the shows that we've watched. Global warming and scurvy are things that we look out for, but. I mean, they are making parallels, right? Julia's clearly has some mental issues that she's going with, and Navarro has too. So I like the orange that you're concluding between the two. Is that a phrase? Orange concluding?
Yeah, we don't have any orange symbolism, right? Like, we just that both of them have seen it. We know that the cross that she also sees belonged to her mother, which both of them have also seen. But I don't know if we really know the origin of the orange, unless it is supposed to be when that guy just was doing the search party and dropped out of his bag.
I mean, the origin of the orange is it comes from a tree, Tom. So an orange tree would be the
Yeah, what's the
origin
first
of
tree?
an
Was it in one of
orange.
those Eden gardens?
Yeah. In Genesis, yes, in one of those Eden gardens. That's an incredible way of phrasing that. I would just. I'm pretty sure in season 1 of True Detective, the like cult of child molesters, they have an annual orange dodgeball tournament, so they throw oranges at each other. So that's
Okay,
probably some
that's a through line.
parallel. But yeah, we'll let Reddit figure that one out. Let's move on from this orange to Pete and Hank having a talk, and Hank very kindly invites himself over for Christmas Eve, mere hours before Christmas Eve starts, which seems like, once again, Hank being a good guy, just making sure everyone gets a piece of Hank on Christmas.
Yeah, and again, he's still in denial here. He had different plans on Christmas Eve that need to change.
Yep. Do you think it's denial, or is he just trying to save face?
I don't know. My initial thought was saving face through this conversation, but like he gives an out saying that her mother was sick, that kind of thing. I think he still is in denial and thinks that it might still come to fruition.
How surprised are you going to be when, like, Hank isn't involved in any of the other mystery of the show, and in the finale, this beautiful woman shows up and is just like, our president started a war for no reason and is a real jerk, so my flight got delayed, but I'm here and I love you, Hank. And it was just like a sweet, sweet love story in the background of this god-awful murder mystery.
Listen, it'd be nice to have a little bit of light, and maybe that's when like the sun finally appears, and then she comes from like the distance riding on a horse in slow mo. I think it'd be great.
Yep.
I mean, they're in Alaska, right? She's coming from Russia. She can probably ride a horse from there.
Tom, you and Sarah Palin make great points about the distance between Alaska and Russia. Thank you, sir. You're a true patriot. All right. Is that a name people remember? It doesn't matter. Let's move on.
Let's hope not.
Catching strays on a podcast. Oh, poor Sarah. All right. Navarro goes to visit Rose. Rose is dressed like, this is like another staple of the horror film, is like when a older person gets dressed up in their fanciest gown in order to welcome death. Like, what is going on here? We get this weird story where Rose is like, I used to be a very serious professor. Where did she get all that food? Like, this is that Johnny Cash Hurt music video. Like, what is going on in this house?
I don't know. I still don't really know what to make of Rose here. They even have a back and forth where Navarro says, like, that probably isn't your real name, and I can't remember what she says her last name is here. So I do think it's interesting that both Navarro and Rose, these two characters, we don't know their, like, real names. Like, Navarro doesn't know her, like, native name, and Rose seemingly isn't giving it. I wonder if that's going to kind of play in some form or fashion, because I just don't know how Rose fits into the greater scheme of the season outside of trying to be a through line to season 1.
Yeah, no, I don't have any idea. I was just like, she's not eating all that. Does she have company coming over? I mean, what's going on here?
Yeah, Navarro didn't even take any of it.
That's a good point. Although she was like, do you have any oranges? And Rose was like, nope. Anyways, the mine office, and by mine office, I'm not saying like my office in like an old Englishy way. I'm saying the mine that digs something out of the ground, which we still don't know. Probably oil. The mine office has been vandalized by Danvers' daughter. This leads to a conversation with the mine lady and Danvers, who are also super friendly chums.
Yeah, again, another Danvers apparently sleeping with Kate's husband, ex-husband. I don't know what that is, but clearly they're not big friends, and Kate wants to throw the book at her daughter just as a means to get to Danvers. What I thought was like very interesting in here is like the parking lot of this mining facility or headquarters had a bunch of Teslas in it. I can't imagine a Tesla is a very efficient vehicle when there's absolutely no sunlight or like your battery is in the freezing cold. I don't think it's going to work very well. It seems inefficient for this environment.
Listen, Tom, you don't have to tell me this. I've been against electric vehicles and green energy for years. I mean, run these things off diesel. I don't know how many times I have to say it. I've only got like 15 more years on this earth. I don't care what happens afterwards. Boom. You're welcome, children. I hope you listen to this after I'm dead. All right. Ooh, speaking of dead, great transition.
Oh, goodness.
We have, I don't know. Sometimes shows give you a warning at the beginning of it, which I'm not going to say ruins like what could have been kind of a shocking surprise. I see why they do it, and I appreciate it. And obviously, suicide is not something to joke about. But you do get a warning in the beginning of this episode. And then, sure enough, this is Julia, who has left the lighthouse, and she is conducting suicide by ice. And it made me sad.
Yeah, it's so heart-wrenching the way it was shot too, where she's like calling her sister and having like one more conversation. She's sitting at that same like boat in the middle of nowhere where they obviously had like a history, or there where she would kind of go and she's distressed. Yeah, it was awful. But I feel like the interesting point with this sequence too is that she strips down and she folds her clothes, she puts them all together just like all the people that died in the Salal facility. So again, I don't know if there's anything to kind of tie to that, but it seems too coincidental not to have some sort of, I don't know, through line.
Sure. Yeah, they do make there's like a very long shot from the camera lingering on folded clothes. And so you do have that thought of what is the relationship. Tom, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't fold my clothes in life. I would not fold my clothes in death. Like you would find a string of them wrinkled all over the ice if this is how I decide to go. And I do not apologize. Folding clothes is for losers.
Wow. Coming in hot. People that work at department stores.
Yeah. Those are the people I'm talking directly to. There should just be buckets of clothes in stores that you get a rifle through. That's how Michael wound up with that lady's pantsuit.
From the office.
What was the name of the brand? It was like Mystic.
Ooh la la?
I don't know what it was. Was it?
No, anyways. I gotta look it
All
up.
right, no, let's move on. We don't have time, Tom. There's no time. All right. So, Leia leaves for the Priors. So this is where Leia, who is spray painted. I like when teenagers do this. They like vandalize a building, and then she gets to be mad at Danvers about that. Which obviously Danvers has made some mistakes here, but I mean, property damage is property damage. Am I right, Tom?
You are right.
Thank you.
And the jacket that Michael Scott had was mysterious.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
But
I said like half of that, so go ahead.
It seems interesting that Leia's going to the Prior's house. I mean, I know they were kind of close, but I didn't realize that would be like her place to lay low. I would assume she would go to like her girlfriend's house. But her being mad at Danvers, she makes the line saying like, "You don't have to," or "I'm not going to keep making you pretend anymore." What do you make of that? Like, pretend to be her mom, pretend to care for her.
Yeah.
So we still don't really know their relationship, right? Like how they came to be together.
We know that Danvers, based on what Leia said in the beginning of the series, is not her biological mother. And this is what she's getting at, is you are taking care of me out of some sort of guilt. You're pretending to care. I'm not going to make you pretend anymore. That's how I took it. Yeah, which, you know, is a conversation between two people in that situation. I can't, but yeah, that's how I took it. How did you take it?
No, I think it is. I'm still kind of confused. Like, we're getting a little bit more of Danvers' backstory in that she had a husband and a son that likely maybe passed in like a car accident or something like that. But I don't understand where she comes from. Is she, like, did Danvers marry into like a previous kid that maybe her husband had? Like, I just don't know where she kind of, that relationship starts.
Yeah, I'm assuming they're going to explain it to us. We do get the son and I believe the husband's name later on in this episode. The son's name's Holden, I believe. But
Yeah.
would this scene have been better if Leia was like, I'm leaving. I'm not going to make you pretend anymore. And then the camera panned and Danvers was in like I don't know, like a clown costume, pretending to be a clown. And it was just like, she's like,
She's
I thought
doing
you
mime work.
Yeah, she's like, oh, I thought you liked when I mimed, pretended to be a mime. And Leia's like, mimes don't talk. And then she gets in the door, slams it, and drives off with, I believe it's Kayla Pryor, Pete's wife, right?
Which I do want to mention. I think Kayla in her phone has Pete's name as Pryor. Like their last name, that's the name when Pete calls her, which I thought was a bit informal. Kinda
Sure.
cold.
Well, I think this was an internet thing that went around not too long ago. It's like if you asked husbands and wives like what the wife was in the husband's phone as, or the husband what the wife was in. So like my wife, I think I'm in her phone as like, I don't know, sweetheart or something like that. Actually, that's what Gam Gam has me in her phone as. But and then I just have my wife in my phone as her first and last name.
I'm pretty sure my wife has in my phone. I am Tom from Phoenix.
That's great. That's solid. That's solid. You're going to get in trouble for that one, but that one's solid. I like that a lot. All right. If you'd like to experience getting to know who we married, we did a podcast with them once. I don't know that it stands
Still
the
out there
test of
somewhere.
time. You got to go find it. So good luck, friends. All right, let's jump back into this. Someone is watching the video. Oh, I think this is Danvers doing detective work, and she realizes that in both videos the power goes out.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it's. Yeah, I don't know how she makes it like from the videos if like the image crackles enough or whatever, but it is interesting because we know the engineer for the facility was Takak, right? So like that's kind of maybe who they're going to lean in a suspect, and that's where Danvers sends both Pryor and Navarro to check it out.
Now, have we ruled out Thor? Because I'm pretty sure there's like a freeze frame of a lightning strike, and then you see Chris Hemsworth in the middle of the lightning strike. So are we ruling out that Thor didn't come in and murder everyone in this show?
No, you can never rule out the God of Thunder and Lightning.
Good point. Good point. Smart. Just like the Spanish, just like the Spanish Inquisition. You never rule it out, and you're always prepared for it, as the old saying goes. Always be prepared for the Spanish Inquisition, I think is the exact quote from that Monty Python skit. You're welcome. She gets hammered, Danvers. She keeps the vodka in the freezer, which is a solid move because it won't freeze. I don't know if people know this, but alcohol doesn't freeze. Even in Ennis, where there's no sun. And so rather than going with Navarro, she sends Pryor. And she really is terrible to him in every way, shape, and form. And the way this was shot, Tom, I said out loud, I said, Pete's going to die. Pete's not going to make it from this visit. I wrote it in the outline. And guess what? I was wrong. Pete was fine. But I really feel like it would have upped the stakes had Pete somehow perished during this visit to the dog sledding lands.
Yeah, I mean, he is kind of that more like young, not naive character, but the kind of like a dark, bleak show like this might put him in harm's way and see him off. I think we do get a little bit later where he actually finally gets to bed with his wife and makes a point about, I mean, I don't know, like what they're arguing about, or like all the back and forth is seemingly about the kid that they had, and that, I don't know, he didn't want him, she didn't want the kid. I don't know what it is, but like they have a rocky relationship, to say the least.
Yeah, we find out later that they got married because they got pregnant, and it sounds like she did not want that. And so I mean, not that we've seen. Have we seen? Oh, I guess we did see one scene where they were enjoying each other's company, but
Yeah, it seemed pretty good in the beginning, but clearly there was more in the lines there.
it's the holiday times, man. It's a tough time, certainly
Yeah.
since no one's buying anyone gifts in this episode or show. So
Yeah, it's the holidays. It's when everybody hates each other.
that's when we should the most. All right, Pete and Navarro drive out to the middle of nowhere. Her calling him freshman, I think, is pretty funny. Takak is not at home. In fact, one would argue his home is abandoned. Pete says something like, "This feels a lot like," and then trails off. Did you, if I gave that as a prompt on Family Feud, what would you end that with as it pertains to this show? Pete says, "This looks a lot like," as they enter Takak's home. What did you think he was going to finish that sentence with?
Potato salad?
Survey says, ding,
Show
ding,
me
ding.
potato salad.
Show me. Sorry, I did the wrong one, Tom. I'm sorry.
It's okay. No, I didn't pick that up as anything weird. I mean, obviously we get the spiral thing
No,
that
but
we've
is
seen
he
before.
is he talking about like the trailer? Is he talking about the Salal facility? Like, why is he saying this looks a lot like? Did you like?
No, I didn't pick that up.
Oh, okay.
Sorry,
Well,
I'm sorry I can't yes change you there, but I didn't pick that up. I mean, there's obviously a lot weird going on in this scene where the shotgun that he was like holding at them, sitting in that chair, is just resting precariously on the chair in like kind of frozen almost, which is cool. And then like his shoes roll right there. Like it seems like he might have gone out into the snow without any clothes. We don't really know what happened.
All right. I think it's worth noting here that when they are visiting Takak's home, we see the other people that live out there, and they do mention that right after their first visit, he left. So he's been gone for quite a while. And I guess to answer my own question, maybe the swirls and everything. Did we ever see Pete go to the trailer? Did Pete go to that trailer that Ray owned?
No, I don't think so. But I think all that's evidence and everything else was brought back to the station. So I'm assuming he's well versed in the case and recognizes some of it.
So to answer my own question, maybe that's what he's saying. This looks a lot like maybe he means the trailer just because there's like, dust and swirls and all those things. So,
well, the other thing that gets picked up here is Navarro picks up like that. Not only, well, I think the swirl's on a rock here, right? So she actually takes it as like a piece of evidence away from the scene.
Right. So that rock's probably not going to come into play again. But
Never.
they leave here and we go and visit Jodie Foster as Drunk Danvers, being real sexy and making some advances on Colin, who is
Connolly.
Connolly? I called him
Connolly, yeah.
Collins like 20 minutes ago and you didn't correct me. Just let's
You're on a
let
roll.
him be Ted Collins, you know?
Okay.
That sounds... You can change a last name, right? Maybe he married a Collins and he changed his last name. Who knows? I don't
But
know.
can you, if you could, I mean, how excited were you for round 2 here?
Tom, on a scale of 1 to 10, I was an elephant. I had no interest in this scene, and quite frankly, I was happy that it was cut short and never really reached, we'll just say, climax.
Well done. Good word choice.
How excited were you? Is that not the line that Danvers uses when she like drunkenly winks at him? She's like, "How excited are you?" Anyways, this was some kind of something. We then get Connolly telling Danvers, "You're a good cop. You were even better than me. I knew that, but you're terrible with people. No one wants to work with you." And I was like, "Oh, I guess we're dropping some truth bombs here." And he brings up Jake and Holden, which are Danvers' former family. Ooh, that's not the right way of saying
Holden,
that.
yeah. Holden was seemingly her kid, and then Jake from State Farm, assumingly, was her husband.
Jake from State Farm I'm sure she had a lovely policy. Maybe she's the murderer. We'll never know. That was dark. Let's move on. I just wrote in the outline, poor Hank, Tom. So apparently at this point in the show, I felt bad for him.
Yeah, this is where we get him picking up the rose petals and all that stuff and seeing the things that he prepared, hoping to have his soon bride come to his place. But they do a transition here where I think in Connolly's not apartment, but his little hotel, and then now at Hank's house, they're both watching Elf. So apparently there's only one channel, and the only thing you can watch on Christmas Eve is Elf, which isn't a bad thing to watch. I do also want to point out that when Hank looks into his fridge, there is orange juice in there. I think he's like pulling out scotch or he's pulling out something to get drunk. There's orange juice. So maybe he's the orange guy. He's the orange killer.
Sure. Okay. Okay. Listen, Tom, I would never revoke your gumshoe status, but that is a stretch, my friend. So let's just move on, but certainly leave it in for when you are very wrong. This is... Oh, man. I haven't heard this much orange and orange juice talk since Trading Places and Mortimer and his brother are trying to steal the futures on the orange juice industry. That's a reference that most people will get. Navarro gets notified that Julia died, and this was
rather quickly, right? Like, this seems to happen the same night.
Yeah, same night, found by the Coast Guard, which I found strange. But
I think she walks out into the sea. I think that's how she ultimately parachuted. Yeah.
No, I understand. I guess I'd have to look into what the Coast Guard's doing. Are they just driving up and down the ice looking for ice? I don't know. But this was interesting because Navarro, she doesn't tell Pete. She's just like, got to take care of something. She internalizes this. And we're cut to Pete at home, in bed fighting with Kayla. It's that weird passive-aggressive fighting that
back to back in bed.
No married couple. Are you awake? No. Let me tell you something. Apparently, we only got married because you got pregnant, and I'm sorry. I don't know. This made me sad.
Yeah, again, they seemed lovely in the beginning, but something... the story
holidays,
changed
man.
very quickly.
It's the holidays and the lack of sunshine. If only the sun would come out. If the sun would come out tomorrow, there'd be no more tomorrows. If the weather outside was weather, it'd be weather, Navarro, as she's driving, gets the finger from the domestic violence guy. This actor's like, okay, so I get to get knocked out in one scene, I get to get beat up in this scene, and then I get to beat up a cop in another. Sign me up, Golden Globes. I'm ready for my nomination. This was rough. I didn't like Navarro beating on anyone nor getting beat on.
Yeah, and I don't know what the storytelling of it. I'm outside of that, she's clearly in a rough spot. She's seemingly just wants to feel something, wants to fight, and needs violence in her life. Doesn't seem very legal to start punching guys like crazy, nor does it seem legal for all these guys to start jumping her. But I'm assuming nothing will come of this, and we'll just move on in the next 2 episodes.
I don't think anyone's filing charges. I think we're gonna move right on, and everyone seems to be doing well afterwards. Yeah. This was not anything that's worth mentioning, but I'll mention it because I put it in the outline. Danvers swerves and finds a polar bear, a one-eyed polar bear. What the lost is going on here?
Yeah, I mean, we thought that this was something that was in Danvers' head because Danvers saw the same one. We know this is like the stuffy that
You're
has
talking about
like
Navarro. We thought this was in Navarro's head.
Yeah, so sorry, yeah, because she saw it. But now Danvers is seeing seemingly the same one. So it's like, are they hallucinating the same thing? Is this bear real? Like, what's your take? Do you think the bear is real?
It's weird that 2 different characters both saw a one-eyed bear. It's also weird that we have a stuffed animal one-eyed bear. But it's also weird that Lost had a polar bear and they were in Hawaii. So I don't know.
What is real? So this makes me want to bring up this concept of when I was kind of trying to dive deeper into what's going on with the mine, what's going on with the water. I feel like they make a point throughout the series so far, these first 4 episodes, to address like the good oral hygiene of seemingly everybody in town. A lot of teeth brushing. We had like Connolly doing like teeth whitening kind of deal, and everybody's like drinking water, putting water. I'm assuming what's going to happen here is because they're focusing so much on people drinking the water or using the water actively, that maybe the people have like something like a Mad Hatter disease, which is like from mercury poisoning, because that can actually cause delirium, hallucinations, and like suicidal tendencies. So I'm wondering if some of the, like, it's not just the nighttime that's driving these people crazy. It's because of the mine. It's because of what's in these people's drinking waters that they're taking in and they don't know, that's causing some of these hallucinations and things to happen in this town.
Okay, let's just put the old car in reverse. What was the oral hygiene portion of that? What?
There's like multiple times where you see characters brushing their teeth, which just seems odd to be showing in a show. Like, yeah, we get characters, actors, they brush their teeth, but
you
like,
don't think Big Dentistry came in and was like, listen, we'd like to sponsor your show? Also, actually, Big Dentistry would like, hey, show a lot of characters eating candy. That way we'll be able to get more cavities and get more money. I know how Big Dentistry works. All right.
But you need to show if the water is the catalyst for these people kind of losing their minds. Like, you can't just show them drinking the water because it's like dark and black at this point. But if you show them like using it to brush their teeth or just taking like small amounts in, I think that's why they're kind of focusing on it a little bit. Because we know the mine has to come into play. We know the water is bad, but we don't know the extent of it. And maybe that is what's causing this delirium in the town.
Good point. I do also think it's weird that every character carries around one of those little squirt guns and squirts water into their mouth whenever they're thirsty. I found that a strange point that the show is trying to, and the water's always really black. So I see where you're coming from. The fact it's not
frozen is impressive too.
Good point, Tom. Very good point. Well, salt water and booze doesn't freeze, so let's just assume they're brushing their teeth with vodka and seawater. Anyways, I don't know what to say to what you just said other than, sure, something could be in the water. Just like that Florence and the Machine song. Boom. Did it. Didn't take me any long to come up with that reference. Right.
Didn't they have an end credits? End credits on this show? Didn't it have Florence and the Machine?
Seven Devils. I've been listening to a lot of Florence and Machine because of this show. I put it on for my kids, and my kids were like, this music's weird. I was like, you're weird.
Don't tell your mother.
Don't tell your mother. It's a need to know basis. And my wife was like, I'm standing right here. And I'm like, you're always standing right there. Anyways.
Don't tell your mother.
Don't tell your mother. It's a need to know basis for everyone. And then Gam Gam was like, why are you shouting? I was like, because you can't hear, Gam Gam, because you're 100 years old. Anyways, don't drink the water, Gam Gam. Navarro visits Quavik and shows him the spiral rock. Not intentionally, she drops it, right? And he picks it up?
Yeah, I feel like the rock has just kind of gone at this point. I don't know where it is, but she kind of gives this whole speech about everyone being alone, and she's obviously in a depressed state. But I like the concept because it's like paralleling some of our other characters with Danvers seemingly kind of being alone. Connolly, you don't really know some of his backstory. Pete, Hank, like everybody does seem to be alone in their own right.
Yeah, I don't know. As long as you have Netflix and books, I don't think you can be alone. That's kind of where I'm at as a person. That's what
interesting.
That's what media. I mean, as long as you can buy your stuff on Amazon, are you really alone if the delivery guy shows up with something cool every day? No, you're not. Yeah, I mean, you don't talk to them. You wait until they leave to open the door and open your sweet package of Not Alone. But, you know, it is what it is. We should mention that Navarro's not looking her best right now because she got the ice beat out of her by 3 gentlemen. I guarantee all 3 gentlemen look worse. And her finger is pointing in the wrong direction. I thought this was pretty funny.
Yeah, I like how Quavik gives her the old Alaskan shuffle where he goes down to pretend like he's proposing and then just pops her finger back into place. So
Sure. The amount of ex-girlfriends I have because of this move.
Alaskan shuffle?
Going down to propose and then pulling on their finger, which None of them had dislocated fingers, which made the move a little bit different and uncalled for. But Tom, I'll ask: is the Alaskan Shuffle a real thing? Why did you use that term? What? I've just discovered. I was too busy trying to formulate my own joke to realize. Wait, what?
I think it's from. This is where my mind goes. There's a movie called Lucky Number Slevin, and I believe in that movie.
Oh, the classic Josh Hartnett. The classic
Yes.
Josh Hartnett vehicle. Sure, the one we all saw.
He does like a Kansas City shuffle, and it's like getting somebody to look one way so you can do something in the other way. So that's where my mind went. So for the three people that maybe picked up on my Kansas City shuffle Lucky Number 11 reference, oh, you're welcome.
No one did. Now that you've explained it, no one did. You are alone. I love every bit of it, though. Thank you, sir, for being you and for watching a movie which I've never seen.
But I'm just gonna stop. You need to watch that movie. It's a lot of fun.
All right, I'll give it a go. I'm gonna leave right now, go watch it, and we're back. All right, great movie, Tom. We're back with Danvers and Navarro, and there is a conversation here where Navarro goes, she says something like, you still have that polar bear, and we find out that the polar bear, the stuffed one, was Holden's, which obviously was Danvers' son, and this causes Danvers to then throw the polar bear out into the snow. She says something like, the dead are dead, which is just off from the Bible verse, let the dead bury their own dead. But did you expect when she threw that stuffed bear into the snow that it would turn into a real bear and then start mauling people like a Pokemon ball?
So the real big bear was inside the stuffed bear. So yes, once it hits snow, it activates. Yeah, I mean, I guess this is... So both Danvers and Navarro know of this stuffy here. So I guess you could make an argument that's why they're both seeing it, because they know it has close ties to the loss that Danvers has kind of suffered. So if it is not a real bear, you can see that they both are aware of it. But yeah, it's clearly Danvers is trying to hold on to a piece of her son, understandably. When Navarro confronts her about it, she's just trying to, I don't know, be a cool kid and say, no, I'm not. He's dead. I don't need this stuffed bear anymore. Throw it away. It seems silly. It's like you could be vulnerable at some points.
Right. Is this Navarro that is talking, and she is like very deeply saying, it takes us one by one. It's a curse. She's calling me now. That's Navarro, right?
Yeah, I think she is at this point is just after the loss of her sister and taking all of the stuff in, she's starting to realize that
she's told Danvers that her sister is dead.
Yes. Yeah. I think she's realizing that both her mom, her sister, and now potentially her, she feels cursed. She feels like it's coming. She also, I think, says like, she's calling me now and she follows, which I think is an interesting line.
No. Yeah, I don't like any of this at all. Not at all. We have the flashback to the Wheeler, and just to reiterate, Wheeler was the one where he was abusive to his spouse. They showed up too late. The spouse had killed his wife, and I think Wheeler's the guy, right? And then Danvers makes the comment that Wheeler was already dead when they arrived, but in the flashback, that's not what happens. He's alive, humming Twist and Shout, and then we see this flashback again, and there is a dead woman who is Navarro's mom pointing over the dead body? Or this is not?
This is the dead body.
Okay. This is the dead body standing over herself, pointing at Navarro.
So this is where I want to do some theory crafting, because I think the way this is set up, Danvers kind of mentions, like, I can't remember how she positioned it, but she said like you were in some sort of like trance, or you were seeing something in this scene. And this scene is actually shot different from when they showed it. Like when Danvers was talking about it initially and telling Pete about the story, she was kind of in a different position. Navarro was kind of to her right. Now when it's being retold here, seemingly because they both know the truth, Navarro's kind of on her left, and she's kind of staring off into the distance, and Danvers sees that she's kind of seeing something, but Navarro is still like, no, I didn't see anything. She's trying to play it cool, like nothing happened. But this is kind of the scene for me that is leading me to believe that Navarro here is potentially our killer. And she kind of goes into this trance-like state, and she kind of has like an alter ego that is doing all of these horrible, horrific murders. And yeah, it starts kind of there with her going into this trance state. I do think that she was the one ultimately here that killed Wheeler, and Danvers is kind of covering up for her. I mentioned earlier when they talked about her mom, I still think it's possible that maybe she maybe killed her mom as a means to protect her sister in this fugue state. I don't know. There's a super interesting internet video by a gentleman, YouTube channel called Think Story. Does a really good like deep dive, like 10-15 minute episode that kind of recaps a lot of these kind of series. And this one, he goes into this deep dive about, and they mention it in the beginning of the season where like the kid Darwin is kind of drawing a picture of some sort of like Inuit sea goddess called Sedna. And in that picture it had like red eyes, the fingers were all chopped off. And if you kind of look at some of the lore of Sedna herself, there is some like title like lost fingers. That factory worker in the very beginning, that woman that Danvers kind of not Danvers, excuse me, Navarro kind of comes help rescue, she was missing fingers, which seems like an odd thing for a character to not have, because I think the actress in real life does have all of her fingers. So I feel like that might have been a nod to this like this goddess. I think some other things that Navarro has said, she talks about like she doesn't pray, she doesn't like speak and pray, she listens, which I think is kind of akin to what a god would do. They're more listening as opposed to actually like saying prayers. This might be a leap, but when we do have that little flashback scene where she thinks about like her military service and the wound of that other soldier next to her was literally missing half of her head. Could it be like a little symbolism for her missing half of her mind, and how she kind of has these like dual personalities? The other thing to mention too is they do talk about Annie Kotok having like 30 star-shaped wounds. And I think at some point even Navarro mentions that she was kicked. I think it's not a far leap to say that those wounds likely came from somebody wearing snow boots. We see Quavik wearing them at some point. I would assume then Navarro would have access to Quavik's snow boots that have those little sharp spines and stuff on it. So maybe she was kind of like stomped. And again, maybe this was, Navarro doing this and actually is the one that kind of killed Andy. So I threw a lot out there. Again, a lot of this is from that YouTube channel called Think Story. I'd look it up if you're interested. But this sequence of her kind of in this trance state in the Wheeler case definitely leads me to think that Navarro could be our big bad in plain sight here. What you think? Am I a little bit too off the roller coaster, or is it has some legs?
No, so all of this is new to me, so I'm a little bit digesting it as you said it. I think to reveal a little bit between Tom and I, after we had both watched this episode, Tom sent me a message that was like, I've got a wild theory. And I made a joke text, and then my second one was, oh, is it that Navarro's the killer? And I can't tell you where or why. I think it might be because of all of the, like, we'll just call them dead bodies pointing and, like, acknowledging Navarro, that there is, like, something very dark, like, and vengeancey of the dead that is, like, blaming Navarro, is trying to point out her guilt, maybe. So I don't think it's far-fetched. All this other stuff that you've brought up is new to me, but there were a couple of vibes that came out of this episode, and I don't know that I could pinpoint them, which is, I mean, if that's what they're doing, I mean, good on the show. Like, I enjoy that thoroughly. But essentially it would be like Navarro is not intentionally doing these things. It would be Navarro has some sort of mental or supernatural hold that is causing this, right?
Yeah, it's either she's like potentially possessed by this like Inuit goddess, or that, yeah, she's just doing it without, I mean, clearly she has no idea that she is doing this, and she's kind of like covering her own tracks. And even the very end of the episode that we'll kind of get to, she's very much in that trance-like state when we kind of fade to black. It's just super creepy, and yeah, I also like the idea of literally these dead characters constantly pointing to our potential would-be killer. So like throughout the entire season, they've been literally pointing out who it is.
Right. No, I like that too, and I think there's something to be said that like someone who's taken an innocent light, that I mean it's almost like Edgar Allan Poe with just the dead calling out your guilt. So I do like that. Who knows how they land this plane, but good work, Tom, and I'm glad that you stumbled across that YouTube channel, and this all of Tom's theory crafting leads us to the dredges. And I was like, oh, the dredges sounds ominous. And then I'm like, oh, slurry pumps. I know what dredges are. It doesn't matter. And it's people walking. Oh, they see a picture of someone walking over by the dredging. This is like an old mining site. And we enter... What's better?
Well, it wasn't just somebody walking, right? It was
Otis.
Otis. Well, we find out it's Otis, but the assumption is it was. I'm blanking on the guy's name. What was the guy?
Not
the guy that
Katak.
Raymond Clark.
Raymond Clark.
Because he's wearing the pink jacket.
Sure. Yeah. No, I'm glad that I guessed 4 names that were all wrong. In the end, any type of industrial site in the middle of nowhere with no lights on that you're creeping through, real good time, right?
This is not the place I would like to go. I mean, we see like the spirals. We see that super, super creepy like spider graffiti. It almost looked like something from Stranger Things. Just terrifying.
Yeah, no, I thought it looked like something from Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and I was like, oh, are we about to drop a sweet track that I'm going to be jamming to after I get done with Florence and the Machine? But there's no superheroes here. Navarro gets called and sees a floating body in the water, and the body has blue hair, and I thought this is her hallucinating her sister, right? And
yeah,
this
I
leads
think blue,
to some
greenish
wet footprints.
Yeah. And we eventually do get that jump scare. Yeah, I think it's her sister.
Well, so her sister had dyed hair, but then we also know the blue dyed hair had to do with Annie Kotok. So I guess you could interpret that either way.
I think it is. Just based on the video that I watched when they kind of cut to it, I think it's green, and I think that's her. Julia's hair was more of that green color as opposed to blue.
Got it. Obviously, someone clearly going through some like grief, so. They can be forgiven their hallucinations. Danvers finds Otis. There's a bunch of like drug paraphernalia in the corner, which I thought was interesting. And then he also has the jacket with the smiley face patch, which is important, right?
Yeah, and then he starts saying these super cryptic lines like Raven went back down to hide in the night country. I think like the night country is just generally like Ennis in this town because there is no light for a long extended period of time, but he makes it seem like it's some sort of like deep, dark, demonic place. I don't know, maybe it's the ice cave. But I like the little, I mean, not Easter egg, but the concept of them saying night country. Me and my wife immediately just look at the TV like, oh, they said the name of the show. They said the name.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think we have documented as saying is anytime a movie or a show says the title of the show, it's like we're talking about Masters of the Air. And whenever those guys high five and go, we're Masters of the Air, boo Nazis. I mean, great dialogue just across the board. But
for sure.
This last jump scare, didn't need it, didn't want it, didn't care for it. Wrote the studio, the writer, and the director a strongly worded letter that just said, no thank you. Please stop making me wet my pants. I am too old for this. Did not like it.
I'm generally with you. I'm not a big fan of these jump scares, but I felt like this one was just done so well. How like the camera looks one way, she turns, it comes a little bit further, and then you see this just lifeless body staring right at her. Scared the living daylights out of me, and pun intended, since there's no daylight in this town
Since
anymore.
this is night country.
Yeah. But then again, like after this little sequence, like Danvers then comes back and then finds Navarro sitting there, like again, talk about terrifying, sitting calmly by a Christmas tree that's being lit up by a car battery in this middle of this mining facility with her ears bleeding, right? Which is the same symptoms we saw from some of the other characters. So again, it's just wildly creepy. It's such a good, I think, ending for this episode. And knowing we only have two more left, I'm excited for the conclusion.
Sure. I mean, I would just like to point out this episode was very much a like Christmas themed episode. And as I've talked about before, on Christmas Eve, my spouse and I, the tradition is something that she brought to our marriage is we watch Christmas Vacation, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation every Christmas Eve. I am rejecting that tradition, and I am only watching this episode every Christmas Eve from here on with my children, and it's going to be a great Christmas from here on out. I'll keep everyone posted on my MySpace blog. That
please, I'm excited to know.
Yeah,
I feel like I've been watching the Ted Lasso Christmas special last couple of years, and that's been lovely. So you chose a different path, and I'd say excited to see what happens, but I'm more terrified for your children.
Are you talking about the Lasso episode, the Keely and Roy Christmas, where she's just dressed up like
Sexy Christmas?
You're just watching that 30 seconds of that episode every Christmas Eve. You're gonna get in trouble, my man.
I can neither confirm nor deny which parts I watch.
All right, so I think we've got our killer. It's global warming, bad water, and Navarro.
And hackers.
And hackers. I don't know that this episode, like, I think they like threw Otis on our lap. Not that we thought Otis was going to be the big bad, but we've kind of figured out Otis at this point. Let's go back to the pin we placed, which we never do, Tom. But you brought up that Navarro is not mentioned to anyone, like the vision of the guy in the hotel room being like, hey, your mom says hi. Gobbly gobbly gook, I am dead, blah blah blah, that sort of thing. I think to your like Navarro maybe the killer is she knows there are some hallucinations and some stuff that is going on with her that she is not telling other people. And so I think that in itself can be dangerous. And so I do think that kind of adds some weight to your conjecture from earlier.
Well, the question is, where's that line? Like, if she did know about this, but then chose not to tell Danvers, then is she aware that she is killing these people and then just is hiding it? Like, I don't think she is. I think this is showing us when this guy points at her in the hospital and kind of tells her, like, your mom's calling out to you or whatever, I would assume, like, that is the alter ego or the version of Navarro that is actually doing these killings. And I don't know, it'd be interesting to go back and watch and see like what her facial expressions are. Like, is she super scared? Is she more calm in this scene? I can't remember. But I don't think you can have it both ways. Either she knows this stuff is happening and she's seeing things, and then she's hiding the fact that she's doing all these deaths, which I don't think is the case. I don't think she knows that she's the killer.
So let's look at physical evidence then. So, like, she had an orange roll at her while she was out on the ice. She picked it up and threw it. Never told anyone about that experience. That one time she was driving and she sees, like, the flashback of her mom with a crucifix. She ends up with a crucifix in her hand, which she throws out the window. So, my thought would be is that she does know that these visions are happening. That would be my initial thought. Now, does she recognize all of them? And does that mean she realizes she's killing people? Or if she even is killing people? I don't know, but I do think she knows that something in her mind is a little bit broken.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, she said as much too when she talked about like feeling that she's kind of cursed, but she just doesn't know the extent of it. So I guess you could have a little bit of that where she feels and she knows that she has these visions, but doesn't know the extent of some of them.
Sure.
Again, this is with the assumption that we're on the right path here, and Navarro is the killer. Because the other thought in the last couple episodes is we still have Raymond Clark out there somewhere out in the woods. We still have Takak that seemingly went out somewhere. Well, not in the woods, but in the ice somewhere, maybe in these caves. Like somebody's going to stumble on him. My assumption would be maybe Navarro does, and then we as the audience get to see her go into that state and maybe kill one of these guys.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Well, we have 2 episodes left, and so when we join everyone again, it will be for part 5, which, as shows do not have a name for the episode that is before the finale, we will just call it part 5.
Just a quick housekeeping note, if you're listening to this when we drop it, episode 5 does come out early. It comes out on Friday because the Super Bowl is on Sunday. So we get an early taste of the penultimate episode, and then back to the regularly scheduled Sunday drops for the finale.
Wonderful. Thank you for that note. That really puts a timestamp on this episode. Everyone will know that it is around Super Bowl 4. For those of you that have listened to us, we appreciate you. For those of you that have left lovely reviews of us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, thank you. For those of you that have sent us weird, passive-aggressive comments, I guess cool. You can reach us at teambingepodcast@gmail.com. We love to engage with our audience, except for when they are offering or asking for money. So, Tom, what did I miss?
Follow us on the socials, Team Binge or at Team Binge Podcast on Instagram and Twitter. Again, let us know what you think about some of the theories about Navarro. Do you think we're on the right track? Anything that we kind of missed? We'd love to hear from you guys.
Yes, we would. For Team Binge, I have been Julian.
And I have been Gumshoe Tom. Till next week, everybody. Good night.